And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great Eric Casaburi. Eric, thank you very much for joining us.
Gene, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so we're talking mindset. We'll jump right into it. So getting your start as a business owner, entrepreneur, talk about that, the opportunities that you saw, maybe inefficiencies and how you wanted to do things different and managing risk and that opportunity. Kind of a big question.
Yeah, it's a lot in there. I always have told people along the way, whether I'm consulting with people now or just when I've worked with franchisees all throughout my career, early on I had a unique start with mindset. My way of thinking about the approach to business early on was a very nothing to lose attitude. And that's always a dangerous place to be, right? When you're competing with anything, when you're against the person who has nothing to lose. And when you start out, you're kind of that way. I really didn't have much risk. I wasn't even married when I opened my first gym. We got married right after that. I'd had no children, of course. I had no assets. So you really come in saying, I'm going to grind this thing out, but I can grind as hard as anything because nothing's going to happen that can be worse than where I was coming out of in the sense of business. I'm starting at ground zero. So that's the nice thing about that stage. If you can understand it and embrace it. The crappy thing about that stage is you got nothing. It's just like, that's, you gotta, you admire people, you look to people that you want to emulate and be like in business. And I had several that I did, and I started to profile so many of them early on in my career. But my mindset was really, grinding and effort. And that comes from being an athlete, right? I think a lot of people you probably talk to, Gene, in your world, are athletic and athletes and coaches. So you probably get that. And I instill this in all of my children, my girls and my boys, that, athletics and sports, there's so much more than just being in shape and being fit and the other reasons why and the fun of competition. It really teaches you a lot about structure, discipline, construction plans, you know what I mean? Like putting things together and then executing on a plan. There's nothing better than looking at X and O's, and in my opinion, on a football team, and then figuring out and going and executing it when multiple people can do multiple things at the same time and work out well. So I think I learned a lot just from being in that environment for all those years, and I appreciate all the coaching I had and a lot of the teachers I had, of course, because they kind of put me in that position, and that was really where I grew my first leadership position. Right? I mean, I was early on, I was captain of the football team, but I earned that through doing a lot of stuff. I was like a lunatic. If people know me that from high school, they'll remember me like running around with a clipboard saying, "Hey, you coming to the weight room today? You're gonna be in the weight room today? Like, what time are you gonna be here so I can schedule you? I want to make sure you get a bench." Like, I was nuts like that because I really, back then, really appreciated strength training at such an emotional, deep level. But that was my mindset. I knew if I built more muscle, if I got faster in the offseason. I love baseball. I didn't play baseball in the spring though, man. I ran track because I wanted to get better at football. So like, I was just one of those people that had a mindset of do everything you can, take all of the resources you can find and put them to work. And that was, in probably a portion that came from, watching how my mom battled cancer at a very young age, right? I mean, my mom passed away very young. I mean, I was only 16, but she battled cancer since I was 12. So, but I watched how, they gave her a very defined, like, hey, you should probably only live this much longer. And it was, I think the time they gave her, I think was 2 years. And she wound up living almost 6. So, and it was because she battled, right? And it was how she battled it. She was going to try different things. She got very resourceful. I mean, all these things that I was just watching happen, didn't understand what they were. I went back years later and kind of analyzed that in my head it was only like self-therapy for me, if you will. But it was a mindset she had. Like and I remember one of my aunts told me, and she had wrote it in a prayer that she had done. And she said, I need to live to make sure my boys are going to be the men they need to be. And I liked it. And that was like kind of profound. My mother was an educated woman. She was an old Italian woman that, was great at cleaning and the probably the best wife and mom you can imagine. But she said some profound stuff along the way, which was really interesting, but it was because she was extremely religious and she lived life in a certain way. That kind of attitude stuck with me a long time. And it stuck with me all the way through my career. And I used to say, I remember on my down days when I was playing sports or I was in the gym, I would say to people, I'm like, nothing's going to be worse than I'm going to do today that my mother's going through right now. Like, and I would literally say that. That's kind of a weird thing to say when you're a young kid, but I can remember, oh God, it's a crazy story because a friend of mine just hit me up on Facebook, and the guy I used to train with all the time in high school. And he remembered what I used to say when I was on the incline bench. And I could see his face above me. Like I look up, I could see this guy's face yelling this down to me because I told it to him once. He's like, nothing's going to happen right now. It's going to be worse than what's happening to your mom. Let's go. You're going to get 12, get 15. And I got to tell you, I was a strong kid. I was lifting massive amounts of weights for my age and my size. But I think a lot of it was the emotional power I was able to create. And it comes back to, like you said, mindset. And I don't think it's appreciated enough in business or in life. I mean, I do this with my children all the time. My oldest daughter, she's a sophomore at Columbia right now, and she's, God bless, she's doing fantastic. My son, my oldest son, he's at Fordham, and he's doing fantastic. A lot of why their success is because of the mindset we have here in the Casaburi house, right? I mean, it's just how we do things. Like if my wife is just a stone cold killer at this shit. I mean, she is like on point when it comes to certain things. Like, you're going to make your bed no matter what every day. You're full of like just these little disciplines that give them the small wins. They don't realize what they're doing, but they're getting a small win to start their day. That stuff is meaningful. And I just turned my wife onto, and my daughter, actually, I got her for Christmas, I got her the Hal Elrod. You know Hal Elrod? He's got the Miracle Morning Guy. Really good book if you haven't read it, or any of your listeners haven't read it. But they have a companion planner, and they have a companion planner for salespeople, a companion planner for students, a companion planner for real estate. Like, he actually subsections it off, which is a brilliant business idea for him. The original was just the Miracle Morning, and that one in itself is great. But he made specific. So I got her one, the college student one. And Carmela was so thankful. She's like, Dad, she finally opened it up after New Year's. I'm like, listen, it's Christmas. I'm like, open this up on New Year's Day kind of thing, and like start off. And it's really good. Set your mind. Like there's an acronym called SAVERS that he uses. And each letter stands for something. S, and the first S stands for silence, right? So start with meditation, thinking, prayer. And my kids are great with that stuff, man. I mean, we do prayers every night together. I mean, all my little ones and my big ones, like, I still run around the house now that they're home from college. I'm like, you do your prayers, Like, and my little ones, we do them together. And it's just amazing that to sit in church and mass together with the six of us. And I have people that come up to us often in mass and say, it's so impressive your whole family's here together. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that's our mindset. Like, we're going to do certain things a certain way with a certain discipline, because it means something later. Like, it's these small little things you might think, that's not going to mean shit. I don't know what. No, it is those tiny little details that have exponential potential for you later. And you will not realize it until you're faced with a challenge, probably, or you're faced with something you didn't expect. And then you've got this little seed that you planted maybe 20 years ago when you were a kid. And I know that I do these things is like, listen, Saturday, 5 p.m., we were at mass. Like, we were there, like, and we sat in the same spot every time with my mother. Like, it was, and it's funny because we kind of have a very similar regimen today. But that little discipline about being able to be somewhere at a certain time for a certain reason had so much more meaning. When I had to be at a sales call or to sell a franchise, I had to be on time, had to be at a place, and there was a reason, it was impactful. And I had to be like, you don't realize certain habits you're creating, you're drilling in this type of system for you to behave on. And in business, it is a necessity. It's the ante to come in. Like, if you don't have that, you're going to have problems. You're going to be challenged. You may get through it, but you're going to struggle, and it's not worth it. Like, if you have a certain curriculum, discipline, makes life a lot easier in business all the way through.
Absolutely. And then it gives you a way to deal with the distractions, or how to keep things at bay,
Sure.
right? Because you got to go on to the next thing. You can't take too much time in this one area, because you got to get to the next thing.
Yeah, you have to understand like that if you can plan things out a certain way, and in business, the thing is rockets are firing at your head all day long, especially if you're doing well. Like that, you got to be able to manage that, and you have to have people around you to help manage that. You've got to have, but that all comes down to a certain discipline. How do you feel about it? Like, what is your mindset approach? Like, what is your discipline, if you will, toward this entity or this business? How do you feel about it? I always just say my businesses are like a person. I would say I would treat, and that was a way to set my head right about how to behave with my business. If I treated it like a human being, like it had a beating heartbeat, I would respect it. And I would approach it differently daily. It's an entity, an LLC, a corporation, whatever. It's an entity. Make it human, create it, make it so it's real to you. And then you'll give it the respect and the need that it needs.
That's a great point. That really is a great thing. I'm going to start using that. Now, you talk about the mindset you have. So you have that mindset for yourself. Then you're managing other people. You're bringing in managers to manage other people. How do you set that tone from the top, where you're leading by example, but it's also the words you're saying to them, and making sure that culture flows? Talk about that a little.
My years in franchising really helped me develop that skill to a almost expert level, I'll say. And I'm still growing, so I'll never be an expert. But I had many years of managing my gyms where I was able to, I went to a lot of seminars, Gene. I studied under everyone from Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, and I did like all of like the one-on-one stuff too, man. Like, I was really big on that because I wanted to learn so bad. I was big on University on Wheels, right? I always had a CD, or back in the early days, I had a cassette in my car. Like, I mean, way back when I did Tony Robbins' first Personal Power, this is years ago. You look at that journal, it's impressive how many of those goals I set back then I actually achieved and superseded. But I was really big on transferring of information. So I would learn this stuff. And I can remember sitting in my first gyms in Brick, New Jersey, and in Manahawkin, New Jersey, in my aerobics room, my group fitness room. And I would set up like a whiteboard. Like I have a bunch of them over here, by the way, behind me. I'd write things out and we would turn pages, and they would just hang on every word if I was talking about, explaining them how to building rapport, establish rapport, neuro-linguistic programming, the importance of understanding body language and communication, all these things that I would teach them, because I always felt that sales felt icky, because sales, you weren't establishing rapport and making friends. Like, the cool thing about my early gyms was I had really good retention, because everyone was like family there for a reason. We established rapport on purpose. We were intentful to establish rapport because it was a training module. It was a mindset we had. We were going to make friends with our members. We're going to want them to stay. They're going to want to break bread with us, have a shake at our juice bar, hang out. That was like, and we called it the cheers effect. That's what we called it. Everyone knows your name. Hey, Norm, everyone knew your name. That was the concept. We literally coined it in the gym every day. And then that as I was creating leaders, and then I opened more gyms and more managers, more leadership roles, they had to learn how to do that. So I had to teach the skill of teaching, which was a whole different skill set. And I always say, people want to always get into franchising. I'm like, listen, Bud, you're going into a whole different business world. You may be phenomenal at your widget, a plumber, a training institute, a gym, cookies. I don't care what it is. Training human beings to do the same thing you are in a similar like-kind fashion is a whole nother animal. And that's all about systems and disciplines. And you've got to have a whole other skill set to do that. And some do, some of those outliers. I was very fortunate. I was really set on learning it and drilling it. And I did the homework, but people don't realize the hours I put in, the traveling I did, the seminars I went to and sat through, and hotel rooms I sat in and then would re-listen to my notes and I did all of that stuff purposefully and intentful. Got into franchising, was very helpful because I was able to teach other owners how to be entrepreneurs and business people, because I had learned the hard way a lot of things like, oh crap, you make all this money, you better put some aside because no one's taking the money out for taxes. You have to pay income taxes quarterly. Like learning these things, having an accountant, like learning, you got to have these people. But you'd be surprised how many businesses start and they don't realize that, oh wait, no one's taking out the taxes for me. I got to pay the state and the law. And oh yeah, you got to do that stuff. So, teaching all of those skills and then understanding the emotional part about that as well and coaching that up. And now that's turning into another thing. So that was in franchise. Now I'm doing, we have a fund now and we're doing fundraising and we're investing in companies. So we're not only investing in like in franchising, I was coaching leaders of my own. I had a lot of control, right? Because we were in really just working with people that were following our system already. When you're going into new companies, investing in these new companies as our fund does, we're talking about meeting with just brand new budding entrepreneurs, and they're not in an environment that environment I created or cultivated. So we've got to integrate, and learn and be able to help facilitate and coaching them up and giving them what they need, and not too much, but not, certainly we don't want to give too little. We want to give everything we can, but there's a balance there. But having a communication dynamic and understanding the communication dynamic, it allows us to do that at a very high level. But it's not easy. I will tell you, it's certainly a skill set that I've acquired over many, many decades with an S, right? Plural. I mean, it was years that it took me to understand that and the importance of it. And you don't get it right every time. You're just not going to nail every relationship. It's very difficult. I mean, we know siblings that fight. We know, spouses that we argue. It is what it is. You got to just work through that stuff, though.
Absolutely. It probably was very difficult also delegating. I mean, you have to, if you're sitting at the top, you can't do every single job. And there might be certain things that you do really well that now you've developed an eye for, you've developed a knack for, you pass that off to someone and they're not quite doing it the same way. How do you deal with that mentally and emotionally?
I always said the hardest thing for an entrepreneur to do is to let go. It really is, because most are type A, he or she is really, has this intent on controlling every little aspect. And I did in the beginning. I was really get out of the way, I'll do it myself was my answer to just about everything back in the day. If you get, but you realize when you want to scale, that's just impossible. You've got to find really good people. And I was very blessed and fortunate along the way, especially the early years. I found very, very good people when I first started. That was pre-private equity. I mean, my really early years. And it helped me. It helped me dramatically because they had that passion. I was able to, we were able to share in that love and excitement about doing things. But having those people and being able to delegate. I'll tell you, the best book I read was E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he was one of those authors back in the day. Michael, you can get on the phone. I got him on the phone. I don't think I was driving on Route 9 in Manalapan, New Jersey. I pulled over right in front of the Manalapan diner because I was shocked that I got this guy on the phone. I did the old, just the old sales technique, the executive, I just keep calling until you get to the real decision maker that's going to get you to the decision maker. And I did. I got to his assistant, who actually got me to Michael. And I was very casual. I was like, is Michael there? Like, I didn't even say like Mr. Gerber. And that's kind of how he just picked up the phone. He probably thought I was like, I don't know, maybe like a cousin or something. I don't know. Got the guy on the phone, but he asked me a very interesting question, which allowed me to make a very important decision at that point in my career. I told him I read his book. It was great. And I was thinking about scaling and launching my business into a franchise model. And I was at this, like the end of the decision road, the fork. And he goes, I'm going to ask you one very simple question. He goes, and this is a question that's really important. I do a lot of my consulting. He's like, I want you to go home tonight. He's like, I don't want you to answer this question now, because you're going to think about it. He goes, and you can answer it to yourself tomorrow. He's like, go home tonight. He's like, and think about this. He goes, we're going to go on a trip. He goes, we're taking one suitcase, just clothes, no electronics, nothing. He's like, we're not going to have any communication with any of your businesses that you currently have. He's like, and we are not going to tell you when we're coming back. Whenever that time is, a week, a month, 6 months, will your business's lights even still be on? Will it be running, let alone will it be profitable? Ask yourself that question when you get home. That will give you the answer if you're able to scale and grow the way you think you can or want to. And holy crap, I got to tell you, Gene, that was the craziest night of my life. My wife, I literally sat up in bed, toilet, like I think my thumbs might have been twirling on my chest as I laid in bed like this. And because I remember Kim saying to me, she's like, what's going on? Like, why are you're acting so weird tonight? It was such an odd conversation, but I remember it vividly. And I said, and I told her the story I just told you. I said, I met this author. I was able to get him on the phone and I read his book and give me this question. She just looked at me. She's like, we could do that. She goes, you just don't want to. She's like, third day of vacation, you're packing the bag, ready to leave, whether it's a 4 or 7 day, you're ready to go. Day 3, I was always checked out. Like I was already like, got to get back in, like, got to get on the computer. Like, even if we were in Disney, like it was really, and I struggled with it early on, but I did realize I could. And she was right. She's like, she goes, we've gone away for days. She goes, you just chose to come back early. You chose to end the vacation at this point in time, or chose to re-engage. She's like, but you don't have to. You have really good systems in place. You've built this thing out really well. Your operations manual are better than some of the ones I have. And she goes, and I work for a publicly traded company. And she's right. We did. Well, she helped me build the manuals. That's why. So I will tell you that that is an important part of delegating and growth and scale. If you want to grow and scale, even if you don't want to grow like I didn't scale into multiple states across the nation, build your business to hundreds of millions of dollars. If you just want to grow and scale to 2 locations, not to be miserable or have some freedom, because it's not just about financial freedom, right? I mean, if you have financial freedom, it doesn't mean you have freedom from your business. You have to have real freedom. What does real freedom mean? Well, can you step away and not be tied to it still, connected, if you will? I mean, the tentacles are very strong if you have that personality. Can you disconnect those tentacles and walk? Can you go for a run without thinking about your business or worrying about it? I mean, if you're thinking about it, odds are you're worrying, not thinking. Let's call it what it is. So I would always struggle, because I would tell you, it would hamper good growth and enjoyment out of being an entrepreneur. You have to be able to enjoy the fruits of it. And I joke with Carmel and Eric, my 2 oldest, because I have an interesting gap in kids. I have 2 older ones, and then we have this like 10-year gap. Everyone thinks, hey, it's when you were building Retro. Kind of was what I was doing. And then I've got Victoria and Drew, who are younger. There's literally 9.5, almost 10 years between my oldest and my third child, Victoria. But I am so much more engaged at all levels. Now, I always coached my son's baseball team and I did all that stuff, but I wasn't nearly as engaged as I was later in their lives, because I was just I couldn't understand the disconnection. I couldn't get there emotionally. I was there physically, but I wasn't there. I was always, my head was always in another place, taking a phone call from a franchisee, calling on a vendor, doing something with the biz, always grow. And then I realized, like, I was able to manage that just by expanding my time, by changing how I worked my hours. So then I switched to everything starts again after the kids go to bed. So I would literally do the 3rd shift, right? I would clock in like 9:30 or 10 p.m. I'd spend some time doing some work, clock out. Kim and I would spend some time together, sleep, wake up, do it again. Like I had a system that made it work. And you just got to have a system for yourself.
That's great. That's awesome. And what are some of the main mental struggles? I know we kind of hit on some of this already, that you see entrepreneurs or owners, they let them get in the way from getting to the next level, mentally, emotionally.
I think most struggle with a few things. One of the primary things I notice that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with early on is they want more. They need for more growth, more. And sometimes you got to realize when you have everything you need or you want, right? I mean, you're probably in the top 1% already, and you're not appreciating it. I love people with goals. I think it's great. You should always have goals. I'm loaded up. If you looked at my book right now, it's loaded with goals. For me, it's the carrot stick method. But when that becomes a hindrance to your emotional and your state, your mental wellness, it's not good. And you won't recognize it till later. The damage is just going to happen incrementally. You're not going to even realize it, whether it's your relationship with your wife, your kids, your family, your husband, whatever. It will do some damage somewhere. And then you're going to have to go make up for that eventually. So, I always tell people that, don't let the business use you, you use the business, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a vehicle. If you're, and people become a prisoner to their own business, they do. They think it gives them freedom. It puts them in a jail cell, locked tight, and they can't get out of it. And that's the shame of it. And I always try to tell entrepreneurs early on, this is the most amazing thing in the world, is to be a small business owner, an entrepreneur, growth person. But it's also could be the most daunting, because you did it for a reason. You thought you were getting these freedoms. Oh, no, I'm not going to work for the man anymore. I'm going to do it. Well, sometimes some people, it may be better to work for the other person, right? And maybe we're to work for a big corporation or something, because you're just a great skill set person and you enjoy the freedoms. A business can be 24 hours if you let it. It will be 27 hours if you let it in a day. Business will find more hours than you can have in a day. It will always beat you on the clock. You can't let it. You can't let it. You have to have certain things in place. You have to be okay with freedom of letting go. And that's part of it. That's part of being able to let it go, delegating things out and allowing it emotionally to happen. Letting go just because you wrote it in a manual and you hand it to someone doesn't mean you let it go in your head. And that was my problem too. I thought I was doing, I gave the guy a task, and then I would 17,000 times in my head think, is he doing this task right? Oh shit, did he really do that? Did he make that call? Did he follow up on that? And I would crucify myself. I was like, oh, I'm not doing this right. I'm like, I have the plan, but I'm not really executing it well. And then I realized that I could do it and do it well. And there's pluses and minuses there. Giving away a little bit of control sometimes meaning you're giving away a little bit of, you feel like, especially if you're a business, you're giving a little bit of you to someone else. And it happened to me in my business too. When I gave a little bit of control of operations to other people in one of my franchises, my gym franchise, that's very well known. It took a little bit of my look and feel away from it. And until today, still, I'm very bothered by that. I am, because I'm so connected to that. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you, it doesn't bother me. It fucking bothers the shit out of me. It does. There's a lot of things that are not right because other people did it and I would not have done it that way. But it wasn't wrong enough where I would be like, oh my God, that's going to ruin the business. No, it was just not how I would have done it. And it might just be a color that you see, or a photo, or an image, or a system that maybe I would have done a little differently, but it still works. And it wasn't worth my sanity.
Right. Makes sense. Last question. During the COVID time, what should owners, entrepreneurs, what should they be thinking during this time?
COVID gave people, in my opinion, some time to learn and grow. And some people, you got to acknowledge, fear is a big part of it. Like, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be like, oh crap, no one expected this Black Swan event. Listen, even if you read books about Black Swan events, like you still can't prepare for them. And I think the industry of fitness, especially, and bar, restaurant, pick a service, right? Hotel, wherever your listenership lands. I will tell you that it was impacted in such a harsh way, because it's really hard to get punched in the face when you're not looking. And it's happening in a bar to me. You know what I mean? Like, someone just takes a swing at you. And you're like, what the hell was that all about? Like, you've seen it happen. You're like, and that's kind of, everyone got cold cocked a little bit. And once you shake that off, the shock, and you realize, okay, who are you? Look in the mirror, or figuratively look in the mirror at yourself and say, what do I really want to achieve here? What was my initial goal here when I was doing this? And you got to go back to the beginning of mindset of how you were thinking when you started in that business. That will help you set your track, because it may not be, listen, you got comfortable in our ways. Everyone did. If you owned a restaurant or you owned a gym, you are going to operate differently for probably a short time, probably for at least another year, and maybe forever, hopefully forever, because I think the industry needed a little bit of a change. I think a lot of the industries needed some change. I think these changes honestly would have come in the next 5 to 7 years, regardless, because of tech getting really involved in all of the businesses, including the digitization of how we order food. I mean, that's come a long way quickly, but the acceptance of it has really come a long way. Short time. I mean, look at what happened in the last year. How much more I don't think my kids have ordered on an app this much ever, and they were millennials, right? I mean, they're the kids that do this stuff. So I think in the gym business too, I think it's got to evolve and change. And right now, having digital, virtual is important for that business as well, but that's not the only thing. It's really about you. What do you want? Like, what do you want for your customer? What do you want to serve up? Like, you got to go back to thinking about that. When you first opened your business, like, what were you looking to deliver? And then go backwards in today's world. Like, how do I deliver what I want them to have? What do they need? What is the need I'm going to fill? Now, how am I going to fill that? Like, you got to start with why always, and then how comes along. If you don't have that same, that's 101 stuff we're talking. Like, start with why and then go to how. Like, do that again. You did it when you started your business. Like, why'd you start your business? Now, how are you going to do this? And then the what comes along, right? I mean, so I always tell people that are asking those questions, and I do feel this question a lot, Gene, and I have really in-depth conversations with some of the clients I consult for. Why are we in this? Why are we doing this? Like, what do we, let's talk about it. It's an emotional conversation. That's great. That's what you want. And then let's go back to tactical, which is how, and then we start laying out a little bit of a plan and lay out a new plan. And it might look similar to your old plan, but you're going to tweak it a little bit, but you should. Look at every other industry in the world. I mean, energy, automotive, health, wellness, food, it's all evolved. I mean, if I said to you Beyond Meat 20 years ago, you'd been like, what are you talking about? Like Beyond, like, what is that? Like, you would have thought, like, I don't know what that even means. But like, every industry evolves for one reason or another. We've had an interesting situation. I do believe that the strong always will survive, right? It's a Darwinian world we live in business. Be one of the strong, right? Get resourceful, dig back into your early black book of how you started with resources. What did you do? You got to do some things you probably haven't done if you're older in business, maybe 10, 15 years. And listen, I went back and I looked, I'm like, man, I'm starting another couple of businesses. I'm like, what did I do? And I literally go back, and I'm so thankful I have some history. And if you're a person who's an experienced business person, you already have a map. Go back and look at not the tactical places on the map, but what did the journey look like? What were the turns? Why was there a left turn here and a right turn there? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? And it will help you draft the next map, which is your future.
Awesome stuff. So many gold nuggets of information you gave there, from the little details of doing the little things right, being exploring, understanding yourself, willing to go to those places, learning, being a ferocious learner. And then I think it all emanates from that big perspective, knowing your why and having your priorities in line, which of course we could always think we could let them slide from time to time, but you're always anchored back to, this is what I'm about and this is what I do. Great information, Eric. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad I could share it. And I'm glad you're out there, getting it out there, distill that to some people, Gene, help them out. All small business owners, they got to work together. It's always great to ask questions. I was never a person that wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. And I learned that early. Think and Grow Rich. I read that, book and that was, and you should read it multiple times if you haven't, but there's so many gold nuggets, like I said, out there from people. Just listen, be a student, always listen, take notes. Don't be afraid to pull out your phone and drop some notes into it when someone's talking to you. If you said something great, and then go take an action. Listen, I always say, when you hear something great, don't just hear it, go do something about it. So always take an action. If you like something you heard today, or you think you learned something when they work with you, go take an action. I don't care what it is, go do something about it.
I love it. I'm fired up. I'm ready to start taking some action after this call. Thank you. I brought you in to be my mindset coach today.
There you go. Good. I'm glad I could help.
Where do we send people? Any links, any websites?
Yeah, I mean, Eric at ericcasaburi.com right now. Right there is where we'll start throwing up all the links for the new companies and the fund that we're doing for it's Lifespan Capitals, the fund. It's really cool stuff we're doing. We're gonna do some amazing things in the industry that you're very familiar with, but all around that industry as well. I'm really excited about that. That's got me motivated every day again.
Awesome. God bless you and your family, Eric. Great stuff.
Likewise, Gene.
Take care.
Take care, brother.
Bye.